Today I'd like to share my personal philosophy that I've been developing and sort of thinking about over the past few years, and hopefully tap into the question of the meaning of life. Why am I making this video? Mainly to get just these thoughts off my head. So a huge caveat, take everything I say with a huge grain of salt. What do I really know about philosophy? Hopefully something of value. But yeah, this is just what I believe and thought, hey, maybe at least someone else can agree with me and work on actively improving their lives rather than sort of drifting in a mindless abyss, trying to chase meaning. I want to point out that everyone's human, we're all human, we all make flaws. We all can't be perfect, but we should strive to be, I think is my main point. Okay, what is the meaning of life? Really trying to conquer the world here, this question. My life, your life, everyone's lives. But yeah, we have a nice little plant image here, some sort of life. Okay, let's dive into my fundamental axioms to what I believe. To the start of my life, and I think most people's lives tend to follow these building blocks. So I exist. You've probably heard of the saying, I think therefore I am, pretty spot on. I have an experience, and I want to maximize that experience. Pretty simple. You might be thinking that this seems really selfish, these set of beliefs, but you can acknowledge that other people have experiences and they wish to maximize their experiences, and interacting with other people makes everyone happier, so it's kind of a plus for everyone. Conclusion one, this is what I'm going to try and argue with this whole presentation thing, that the best way to maximize my experience or everyone's experience is by increasing fulfillment, and we're going to talk about what that is. Yeah, so we already touched on how it can be selfish. This lies on the fundamental assumption that we need to agree to make this meaning important, is that being alive is better than being dead. If you disagree with that, then it's kind of this will probably go over your head. So I'll basically be explaining what I believe the meaning of life to be, is by creating habits that can increase our fulfillment. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I want to talk about how. Okay, cool. So with all the sort of boring philosophy stuff out of the way, we have this loose statement of maximize my experience. I want to maximize my experience. You probably want to maximize yours. So how do we do so? Happiness. Now, happiness has a few issues. What is happiness? There's actually not so mystical definition. It's just your nervous system's way of directing your behaviors to evolve and ancestral survivals. So here we jump into our first major roadblock, because happiness is just an emotion, and sometimes this emotion can lead us to some not so favorable outcomes. This leads me on to talk about fulfillment. What's the difference between happiness and fulfillment? Mainly time. Fulfillment gives us a deeper sense of purpose due to the long-term effect it has on your experience. Happiness is generally described as an emotion, whereas fulfillment is like a state of being. Now, I need to say that short-term happiness is not bad. Every single human, to some degree, engages in their short-term happiness. This is not a bad thing, and it's simply different to fulfillment. But I'll go on to say that, spoiler alert, the meaning of life should be to try to increase habits that improve your fulfillment and reduce or keep to tasks that do not improve your fulfillment. So we're sort of directing happiness into, yeah, we have a short-term happiness, which is more of an emotion, long-term happiness, which is to do with a state of being fulfilled. So what are some examples that increase our happiness in the short term? So these are short-lived spikes in our nervous system's evolved pathways. Smoking, this gives our brain a nice feeling that we associate with happiness. Music, very strangely, can make us very happy. There's a lot of debate about why we evolved to like music, but everything that gives us happiness is due to our nervous system's evolution. So maybe there's something in the caveman times where music helped them live longer that survived today, so we like music. Psychedelic drugs that literally directly hits buttons of happiness in our brain. That's not a big one. Watching a show on Netflix, eating tasty food, also contribute to happiness. Now, you can see that very clearly in this issue. Just trying to increase this general loose concept of happiness might lead us down some not so good paths of life. So I think it's best if we focus on things. The second type of happiness, I've bolded. This long-term happiness is the thing we should be aiming for. And short-term happiness, not necessarily as bad, it's just more nuanced. Great, so we sorted out this distinction. Now to the question of how do we become more fulfilled? How are we going to increase fulfillment? With what I like to call the 3 pillars of life. I truly believe that every single person, including me, including you, abides by these 3 things, and if you don't do so, you're probably going to be miserable. These concepts may seem very milquetoast, sort of vague ideas, but they go pretty deep, and you can probably apply them to your own life since it encompasses literally every single human, including myself. Okay, here we go. Health, money, social. These 3 sort of broad categories. Now, I'll spend a lot of time diving into each one of these concepts and talk about 1, why they matter to everyone, 2, things that can be included in them, 3, how all these pillars are interconnected, and lacking at any one of these 3 pillars will probably lead to an unfulfilled life, and 4, daily and some actual actionable steps on how to improve on these 3 things. Okay, we have some nice little symbols here to represent each 3. Okay, so why is health, which is directly linked to oneself, important? Well, we are all human, with brains and bodies, and arms and legs. There is no escaping that fact, unless you are a robot, then hello. So if I go back to the assumption I made at the start that life is better than death, and being alive is pretty number one high priority, the second priority should be to be continued to be alive in the future, and hopefully prolonging that life as much as reasonably possible. It's like if someone asks you, hey, do you want a mansion? And you're like, yeah. And then they say, but you're going to die the morning after. You're probably going to be like, probably not. I don't want that mansion then. So yeah, pretty important. So we have a small diagram here, but this goes so in depth in every level. So I can't talk about the entirety of the health pillar. It'll take me literally hours, but here I'll put some structures to it. So you are composed of a brain and a body. If you have an impeded mental state, for an example, let's say you are very anxious all the time, this does not contribute well to the overall health pillar. You're also composed of a body. Everyone is. You have the things that affect the body. So we have diet, how much physical activity you do, and sleep. Taking another dive into one of these sub-pillars, you have sleeping. So sleeping 8 hours a day in a consistent schedule seems to be objectively positive to your body's physical health. This is just like one sort of dive in. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the second pillar, money. This is the ability to exchange goods and services with other humans. Money is sort of good in the sense that we are all on an equal playing field, so this kind of stops any discrimination between people. But it also means that if you want to play the game, you need money, some sort of money. You always hear the saying that money doesn't buy happiness. That's wrong, sort of. It's money without sufficient support of the other two pillars that don't give you happiness. So you always hear that stereotype of the loner billionaire who, no matter how many yachts he bought, doesn't seem to get any happier. But hint, he's probably lacking on the other two things. But rough outline again of what the money pillar could look like, more in depth this time. And hey, look, these outlines sort of way of individuality comes in because we are not all the same. We're all different. Someone could be a huge spender and doesn't need to buy it all that much. And hey, if that's you, then good for you. But the main element sort of this pillar is that money is like water. If you have enough of it, your life's going to kind of suck. And when you have a lot of it, you don't really gain too much extra happiness from it. So money can be separated into these two categories of intelligence and action. So I'm going to do a lot of different branches here we can get into. So maybe going to university, getting good grades, learning a language, they all contribute positively to your intelligence. For this action pillar, gaining some skills, working a job, creating a business. We can dive even deeper to sub-pillars of management and planning for creating a business, for example. It's just a template. Planning, if you want to plan a business, you need good marketing, you need good customer service. So we can get really, really in depth into each of these pillars. And so these mind maps, yeah, in a specific topic. Okay, on to pillar 3, social. So this is the interaction of other people. Before I go any further, I need to mention that these pillars are sort of in chronological order of what you should be looking to improve upon. Because what are you going to use money on if your health is all fucked up? And jumping straight to social, the interaction with other humans is not the best idea. If you're like extremely poor or really unhealthy, probably shouldn't jump straight to pillar 3. So, but you'll find that pillar 1 and 2 are really actionable, and pillar 3 not so much. But if it will sort of come if you have yourself sorted out. Okay, so again, rough sort of general guideline for pillar 3: family, friends, long-term partner. These seem to be the most general, meaningful categories from 99% of people. Many sub-pillars here you could list. Respect is important for family, for example. For a long-term partner, you should probably be communicating well, have a good sense of trust, spending quality time together, etc. This can include date nights, traveling together, whatever you wish to have a person that you love dearly. Again, this is just an example format, so you need to think of your own situation and how you can improve with your interaction with your loved ones. Okay, so I've sort of outlined a rough guideline on what I believe to contribute to fulfillment, the 3 pillars. Maybe you're thinking, great, I want to become more fulfilled. How do you do this? Well, through habits. We are a sum total of our experiences. This statement is pretty reasonable, I think, to most people. The only way we can change our experience is through habits. Doing an action in repetition and getting into a pattern to the point where it's seamless to do that action. That's what generates change. So this is a sort of way to check on how, if a given habit affects fulfillment. So yeah, habit checking. Does it positively contribute to the 3 pillars? Going to the gym, pretty self-explanatory. Does indeed improve your health. Does it negatively contribute to the 3 pillars? For example, smoking, pretty obvious, negatively affects the body's ability to absorb nutrients, vitamins, minerals, that stuff. Pretty universally agreed upon as a bad habit. Now we have different kind of habits that have a pretty neutral effect on the 3 pillars. So, for example, listening to music doesn't really affect any of the pillars I've laid out. It's not a positive effect or a negative effect. It's pretty neutral. But there's also some overlapping habits that can have a positive effect in one pillar, maybe a negative effect in another, or even some habits that have positive effects in multiple pillars. Everything in between. There's a lot of different overlap here. So we have our Venn diagram of the 3 things that give us fulfillment. So a few examples of what I'm talking about. We have family walk. Seems like a plus on the social side, social aspect, and hey, walking is pretty healthy, so that's a plus to your health too. Doesn't really affect the money pillar at all, so it's sort of like an overlap between those two, I'd say. Weird hypothetical I'm trying to think of. Maybe you can probably think of a better one. Maybe like a business meeting in a restaurant. Could in a weird roundabout way be able to affect in all three. If you're getting better social connections with colleagues, you're talking business, maybe eating healthy food. I don't know. Really bad example, but yeah. Yeah, we have clubbing with friends, alcohol consumption, sort of negative for your health pillar. But clubbing with friends, probably good for social pillar. Uh, Paying for a gym membership, again, bad example of a way that's a negative effect on the money pillar. But of course, it's good for the health pillar. So a lot of actions have different overlapping, different effects on the three pillars. You just have to sort of be more reflective and just think, how does it affect the three pillars? Okay, so the meaning of life, finally going back all the way to the start, I believe is to perform more fulfilling actions and reduce less fulfilling actions. Where fulfillment is the three pillars of life. That's what I'm talking about. How? We create positive habits. That's simply how you do it. Okay, so if you're unconvinced or you disagree at this point, then this is probably going to be useless to you. But now I'm going to go over how I think you can create a habit, aka an action that you do repeatedly. This is probably like the most actionable and useful slide of this entire sort of presentation. So a lot of people have some weird things when it comes to creating habits. Like they have some weird beliefs. You hear a lot about like discipline. You know, you got to be disciplined and shit's gonna suck all the time. You're gonna have to grit through it. There's some grain of truth there. So I saw this graph in bodybuilding forum, but I think it's a pretty good system for habit building throughout anything in life, not only like going to the gym. So here it is. This also links very closely to the pyramid of consciousness, if you know what that is. So the pyramid of consciousness is this thing at the bottom left here, where you have these four different layers of consciousness, and like the stages that you can advance through. So unconscious incompetence is a state where you don't even know you're bad at something. So let's take something like riding a bike as an example. Let's say you go up to a kid who's never seen a bike in his entire life. You say, hey, can you ride a bike? He's probably gonna be like, what's a bike? I don't even know what that is. This is stage one. And let's say you give that kid a bike, you say, okay, go ride on it. He's gonna get on the bike, he's gonna fall down immediately, right? So I think this is stage two, where he's conscious of the fact that he is incompetent. Now, let's say the kid keeps riding a bike and falling over, but finally, through habit, he can ride the bike, but he's still like very wobbly, and he has to focus on his task really, really hard. But at this point, he's like stage three of consciously competent. Then let's say the kid, he has the bike, and 2 years later, he keeps riding it at stage three. And let's say he develops the point where he literally can ride the bike, look around at trees, look around at shops and stuff like that, and the action of riding the bike, he doesn't even need to think about it. It has become second nature to him. So I think this is the stage where he is unconsciously competent. He doesn't even need to think and perform the action well. Okay, so back to this graph. The red line at the start is an initial inspiration to do something. So let's just take another example. Let's say you want to learn German. So let's say you really love the German culture. That's like a really good inspiration to get you interested in trying to learn German. But I don't think you can ride on that forever. You probably have a lot of like non-German speakers who are like really loving the culture, but that's only going to get you so far, right? That brings me to stage three, which is essential thing for adherence is the light blue line. This is intention. This is having like a dedicated plan to action. This doesn't even need to be like the slightest bit perfect, but it has to be something. You have to do something, literally anything. It can even seem like really stupid to you. You might even think like, why am I even doing this? And you might even want to like try to optimize it and try to like jump the gun. A lot of people have trouble with this step because they are too stuck in the optimizing phase before having a dedicated intention. Like a big example you see is like, let's say you want to create a business. A lot of people like are stuck in the name creating part or like making a good business logo when doing something productive is probably more useful. And the name and logo are like really low hanging fruit that don't really matter. Okay, so back to this learning German example. Let's say you come up with a plan of intention. Let's say you're going to use like the Duolingo app. It's like an app you can learn languages for like 1 hour a day. This is your intention. This is what you're going to do. You say, no matter what, I'll spend 1 hour of my day practicing German on this app. Okay, great. Now we have to look at this graph. Let's say you're week into this plan, and one day you wake up, you feel really great. You just talk to all your German friends, you really love German culture, and literally this task of doing Duolingo for like 1 hour a day is literally a knock out the park. Like you want to do it. This is motivation. So this area above this blue line in the graph, of this light blue line, anything above it, that's motivation. So a lot of people say it's not about motivation, dude, just pure discipline, iron will. That's really wrong. Motivation is really useful to keep adherence to this light blue line, which is your intention. So the dark blue area in the graph, that's where discipline comes in. That's on the days where you just aren't feeling it. You really don't want to go on the Duolingo app. It gives you a notification, you jump back into it, deleting that as fast as you can off your notification bar. Yeah, as fast as possible. So this is where discipline comes into play. So for those good days when you feel incredibly motivated, there'll also be some bad days where you feel like you just have to grind through the task. Like you just have to do it. You have to get on the Duolingo app and you have to go through the exercises that you do. And you have to just be miserable and do it. But yeah, this is really vital to maintain consistency of the intended plan. So after months or so of let's say doing Duolingo for like 1 hour a day, learning German consistently, having to use discipline as well as motivation, so you're using both these two things, you will reach a state of glory. The light green is sort of when like the habit develops truly, and then what you want to aim for is this sort of darker green line that seems to be going into infinity. Um, so yeah, this is the state of glory. This is the green line. This is the stage where you literally just have pure passion for the art of like learning German. You literally start watching like German YouTube videos. You're watching German movies. Every time you don't understand a German word, you're like looking it up, just not out of any intention of literally just want to know what the word means. That's the point where I think that at that point, once you have literally pure passion to the art of learning German, that's a good idea to like readjust down to stage 3 and optimize because hey, maybe going on Duolingo 1 hour a day isn't the best way to learn German. Maybe you decide like maybe sitting down and doing speaking and listening tests, making flashcards could be like more of an optimal way to learn. So you can simply replace like what you were doing with that. But it's really, really important not to jump the gun because if we did that at stage 2, you're going to make any new wanting learning German speaker, like let's say you make them consistently do like flashcards and speaking listening tests 3 hours a day, they will be miserable. They will fail to adhere and they will like, and all of it will go to waste basically. So I think the key important thing is you can't bite off more than you can chew. And just to mention that this habit system creating structure can also be used to eliminate like a bad habit, I think. So let's say you have a bad habit in your life, like let's say smoking, for example. Then you have this initial inspiration in the red, like maybe you just coughed up blood, maybe you need to, and you think, oh shit, I need to stop smoking. And then this entire process of sticking to the plan, like maybe your plan is, I'm only going to smoke 1 cigarette a day, or I'm going to switch to e-cigarettes, and then you're going to stick with that, and that's the light blue line for you. And then with all the swings of motivation, discipline, until stage 4, where you like, basically you can apply this habit situation, you can apply this to every situation in life, basically. Okay, so this will lead us to a nice cycle of performing. This is the sort of cycle you want to reach, where you can perform an easy and repeatable action. Then you do this action consistently for a long period of time to the point where you become unconsciously competent. So that's stage 4, right? This is the point where you can increase the difficulty of the repeatable action, and this cycle sort of goes over and over until you've sort of mastered whatever you're using the model for. Quick example of like, let's say the kid riding a bike. Let's say he's like learned the bike fully, he's at stage 4, like he knows how to ride a bike. Now say you want to like push the difficulty, so you're on the increased difficulty part, where you're trying to improve, like let's say he wants to improve his long distance cycling endurance. So you're going to set the task of cycling, let's say like 30 kilometers a day. And he's going to go through the cycle again until 30 kilometers a day seems really easy for him. And once it seems seamless, maybe then he needs to use more self-reflection to think what goals he wants to set in like his cycling endeavor. But that's sort of the cycle you want to create with habits. Making sure you're consistent before you jump the gun, though, is really, really important. Okay, now I've talked about how to create habits, how to identify habits that can positively contribute to the 3 pillars of fulfillment, what I believe. I want to quickly talk about a few side points that might be interesting that sort of interplay here. So humans aren't rational, truth-seeking beings. We like to think we are, we really aren't. 2 sort of things that can impede on your ability to improve that I think are noteworthy are regret. So if we put our thinking caps on for a second, premise 1, you've changed your view on something, let's say. Premise 2, you can't change the past. It's physically not possible at this point in time. So conclusion, the only thing you can do is be different in the future or change view. We have the emotion of regret because of our evolution, and it's a good thing. Because it means like a highly likelihood of living in the future with improved actions. This is only because of this logical framework. There's no use to thinking about the past and all the wrongs you did for like prolonged periods of time. If we want to be rational beings, then we should gather the information in the past and like sort of improve upon it in the future. There's sort of 2 sayings that I really like here to illustrate this point. I think it's like a really famous saying, Chinese proverb, like the best time to plant a seed was yesterday, the second best time is now. Sort of same sort of vibe. Another good piece of advice is looking at the past but not staring at it. This can really help you move forward, sort of, with living life. Next is the teleological fallacy. Okay, this is the belief that there's like some sort of cosmic flow in the universe where if you improve in one area of life, there must be some sort of balance way or the person's lacking, A really good example of this like weird cosmic flow fallacy that everyone engages in, like everyone thinks about this. It's like, let's say that stereotypical like high school bully, he must be worse off now because of how bad he's like done in the past. And the reality is there is no cosmic flow. Maybe that bully is a millionaire. He's living his best life, and that's really logically that could be the reality. So there is no cosmic flow in the universe. Everyone, including you and me, can all objectively progress and improve in life and just get smarter and richer and more fulfilled, and there are 0 opposing effects at play. So the ability to progress is just very real, and there's no real like negative to it. Final point I want to say before wrapping up this whole thing is that don't come away thinking like I hate my life in a constant state of trying to progress, like in my fulfillment 24/7. We are all imperfect. Like it's very hard to be in a place where every single action that you do can contribute to your life positively, like fulfillingly. Case in point, me making this entire thing. What do I gain in terms of progressing like my life, my level of fulfillment? nothing really, but like, hey, it's okay. It's just about trying to increase like the percentage of the actions in your day that lead to you being more fulfilled. So like the next time you like lay down and watch a TV series, you shouldn't beat yourself up over it, but you should just like sort of acknowledge, hey, maybe you can use a higher proportion of your day to like work upon health, money, social, the three things that really matter to every single human, including me and you. So yeah, back to listening to this entire thing. Hopefully everyone can progress. I can progress. You can progress. We all can live happy, and everything's great, and the world's lovely.